Hi everyone, Tim from Columbia 300 again. We are here at Sherman Bowling Center. We're going to check out the new high performance ball for Columbia 300, the Super Cuda Pearl. I have Nate VanderBeek with me again. You might remember him from previous videos. He's going to take this out in the lanes, kind of show how it works for his style. We're also going to hit a couple different centers in town. We're going to hit Northway lanes a little bit later, and we're going to hit the Brunswick headquarters, kind of see how it works in our testing environment. We also have some comparison balls we're going to take a look at as well. So once you take the Super Cuda out, it's this nice orange and red piece here. Very, very cool looking. Throw a couple shots and kind of see what it does for you.
All right.
I would say set up kind of where you feel comfortable, your normal spot that you would start, you know, if you're bowling on a house pattern, and we'll go from there.
So I'm gonna stand on 24. I'm gonna keep my eyes the same at 17. Try to get this ball going a little bit further right, down lane.
Yo, that one was pretty cool. What are the things, like if you do throw a bad shot, obviously everybody throws bad shots. What are the things that you try and get your brain to think about so that way you can execute a little bit better next time?
Typically for me, I find it's a lot to do with my timing. So when I start like throwing a little bit bad shots, either further left, further right, when I want them to be, I start thinking about just maybe slowing my first 2 steps down a little bit. That way my timing get back in line.
Yeah, I mean, one of the big things is like when you practice, you can't work on 7 things at once. So a lot of times there's gonna be one trigger that kind of sets everything else in motion. And a lot of times it is those first 2 steps, because if those get big, then everything else in your approach gets out of sync. So keeping those first 2 steps slow and kind of in, you know, normal, natural cadence, that'll help sync your entire approach. So that way the ball and your feet get to the foul line at about the same time. So just focus on that slower first and second step, and then get some good execution here.
24 with my feet, 17 with the eyes.
That one's pretty good. That ball's making a pretty good move there. How do you feel like, what do you feel like you're seeing out of it?
I'm seeing definitely a lot of mid-lane motion. The cover is pretty strong in my opinion,
Yeah.
Which makes it just kind of grab and need to get going left. So on this house pattern, once it gets left and starts to read the lane pretty strong, it makes that big motion left.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of where we wanted it. Your comparison balls that you have with us, we have a Ricochet Pearl, really big, booming, back-endy kind of ball from this past December. And we also have the Piranha Pearl from most recently released in February. 2 symmetrical pearls, but you're going to see it between these 3 pearlized balls. They're going to be a pretty big chain, or pretty big variety of ball motions in them. Cover stock strength-wise, you are correct. This is a stronger formulation. It's not as strong as the Ricochet, but it is going to have a lot more traction than what you see out of the Piranha. So let's you throw one more. Let's try and get you to go flush, and then we'll look at some of these comparisons. So another 1 and 1 back left. That one looks pretty good there. Yeah, and that's pretty good. So much stronger change of direction and motion through the pins than kind of any of the Columbia balls we've seen in a while. So why don't you pick whichever one of those you want to throw first.
Start with the Jade Piranha.
Okay, so we have the Piranha Pearl he's going to throw here. As I mentioned, RG-wise, they're in the same ballpark. Piranha's got a little bit more differential, but cover-wise, the Piranha's going to be cleaner and less aggressive cover stock formulation. So
Try that at the same spot. 18 my eyes, 25 my feet. Try that first step slow.
Dang. So that was from the same spot, okay? And what I saw from my perspective, and you can tell me what you see from, you know, the guy throwing the ball on the foul line, I noticed the ball was much cleaner in the mid lane, kind of held its axis rotation a little bit longer, so that way it still make a good motion through the pins. So I don't know if you kind of saw the same thing, what you felt as the bowler.
Yeah, I definitely agree, and kind of just like based off that shot, seeing the messenger go across kind of tells me that the ball got a little bit behind the head pin maybe, which isn't necessarily a great sign coming to my eyes.
But
so,
yeah, I mean, if you're trying to throw 7-baggers,
yeah.
then
So
hard to rely on that.
definitely a little cleaner and definitely just a little bit more keeping its axis down lane.
So, I mean, that's a pretty good telltale sign of the difference between the two balls is from the same alignment. The Cuda dug in a little bit sooner and finished further deeper into the pocket. You left the 9-pin from the same alignment. The Piranha was a little cleaner and even finished behind the head pin a little bit too much. You resulted in a strike, but still, it wasn't the ideal pocket hit. So what kind of move would you make to try and get the Piranha to face up better?
I almost think I could do a 1-and-1 right, maybe get to the friction a little bit quicker, and just see if that gets the ball to face up in the right part of the lane instead of getting a little bit more behind.
Yeah, try and let the lane kind of help it back in.
Make sure I get that first step slow.
Yeah, much better. You can definitely see that one actually was able to slow down in the mid lane and shape and face up the pins the right way. So why don't you take that Cuda, and from that last strike, let's try and get lined up so that we don't 9-pin so we can go strike now. So I would probably say another 1-and-1 or 2-and-1. What are you thinking?
I think I'll make another 2-and-1 left.
Okay.
So from 18, put me at 19 at the arrows, and 27 with my feet. First step slow.
Slow down. Perfect. There it is. So that's ideal ball motion right there. I don't know if you can throw it any better than that for what you were trying to do. So you kind of see what the difference is there. So 2 shots that go pretty flush between those 2 balls. You have them 2-and-1. Where you have them right now?
Right now it'd be 3-and-2 different.
Okay.
I was 24 with my Piranha, standing 24, and then I was standing at 27 with the Super Cuda Pearl. So I'm definitely seeing a 3-and-2 difference in ball motion. I definitely see the Super Cuda Pearl just picking up the mid lane a little bit harder, which allows me to keep it in the oil for a bit longer maybe and move a little further left and have it grab.
Yeah, that's perfect. And that's probably a product of that stronger coverage, HK22. It's got the Formula 1 additives. So there's a lot of things that are going to help it. The Formula 1 additives are a strong additive package, so it's going to create a lot of traction in the mid lane and a lot of traction in oil compared to the ERT package in the Piranha. So why don't you take that Ricochet out. Ricochet came out in December. It was a pretty clean, pretty whippy ball, right? So really strong cover, really strong core. You're gonna get a lot of flair, a lot of motor out of this thing. But the surface prep on it is gonna help it project down the lane and make a really strong move. So I kind of want to see how these two compare to each other, since this one does have a slightly stronger cover, but the cover on the Ricochet is even stronger still. So. Yeah, and that surface prep, you see it projects pretty long still despite having a really strong cover and core. So let's just throw another one. I would stand in the same spot. It still did strike, but I would stand in the same spot and figure out what you got to do with your hand in order to get it to face up better. Because I don't know if you want to move right because it's going to bounce off the friction so hard.
I think that put me a little too close to the cliff on this house
I don't
shot,
want you to move right and then all of a sudden you get 4 in the middle.
Yep.
So
27 feet, 19 at the eye.
Okay, so what would you do differently with your hand on the last 2 shots? What did you do?
I just make sure to hit it a little harder.
Okay.
I just kind of have that tool in my bag where I can kind of slap on a little bit more and just get the ball to pick up a little bit more and go forward.
Okay.
So,
yeah, the important thing is you want your ball to pick up in the mid lane. And on this heavier house pattern, I think the surface prep is just making this ball just a little bit too clean for now. So why don't we take a look at the Super Cuda again. I would say stand in the same spot, do that trick, you know, try and hit a little bit harder and see if this one tractions in the middle of the body of the oil better.
27 feet, 18 guys.
Yeah, you definitely see it slow down a little bit more still. So surface is an important thing. You know, you can have the strongest cover, but if it's got a lot of shine on it, it's not going to be really for playing in heavy volumes of oil. So that just kind of goes to show you the differences between these 3 Pearl balls in the Columbia line. They're all symmetrical, they're all pearls, they all have the same layout on them, but we do have 3 different ball motions. So we're going to pack up here, we're going to head over to Northway lanes across town, see how these pieces work for Nate over there. All right, bowlers, we made it to Northway. We got 45 and 6 set up here for Nate. Nate's gonna throw some shots. We do have the Super Cuda Pearl as well as his 2 comparison balls that we saw before, his Ricochet Pearl and his Piranha. So Nate, why don't you take that Super Cuda and see how it works here.
About 30 with my feet, looking about 22.
Good shot there. Would you change anything execution-wise with that one?
No, I think I might just try to roll it just a hair more, maybe not to have it so spinning so much down lane.
Okay.
Just get it to go forward.
Yeah, just try and get the traction or dig in a little bit sooner. Sure. Mentioned earlier in the video that the Super Cuda Pearl does have the same CUDA core as the other CUDA models. So it's a medium strength symmetrical core. The Super Cuda was a benchmark type of ball, kind of middle of your bag, slightly stronger benchmark ball. This one is a kind of a stronger, shinier ball for being a symmetrical piece. So it's not going to be as much overall if the surfaces are the same as the Ricochet, but it should traction and give you more overall hook than the Piranha will. So.
All right, same thing. 30 with my feet, 22 with my eyes.
Yeah, that was a much better shot there. So you did make a slight tweak with your hand compared to the last 10 pin. So would you find that this is like your comfort zone? Where do you normally like to start out, you know, in a higher friction environment? Like
Yeah, I definitely think this would be more of my comfort zone just in this specific environment, just because I know there's so much hook to my right, and I know if I get it up the lane, it'll probably just shim out just because it's a house pattern still and all the oil's in the middle. So yeah, this is more where I'm comfortable on this type of condition.
Sure. Try and throw a couple more, and then we'll look at those comparisons. I touched on the cover, and so the HK22 base, but we paired it with the Formula 1 Pearl cover from the Top Speed. So you're going to see a lot more traction in the mid lane, or a lot more gluing, or a lot more of a not too super clean and sensitive to the wet and dry kind of motion that you might see out of like a Piranha. Piranha will probably just require more friction to get that same kind of shape. So let's go ahead and throw one more. I see a 4-pin there. Was that a good shot?
Yep, I think I might need to make another move because they're just transitioning a little bit more.
Okay. And that is a product of having a little bit less volume in the lane pattern. The lanes will change faster.
So make another 1-1 left, put me at 31, in about 23.
Yeah, that one looked really good there. So how deep are you now compared to when we first started having you throw shots?
I'm already another 4 and 2, 3 and 2 left of where I started, just because of how quick these lanes have transitioned. They're starting to blow open a little bit more, so I have a more hook to throw it to.
Okay. So you can grab either one of these comparison balls.
Start with the Piranha Pearl.
Okay, so over in Sherman, we saw the Piranha being cleaner in the mid lane, a little bit more directional off the lane pattern. Kind of let's see what happens here. I imagine with the higher friction, we might see a little bit less of a hockey stick, but we'll just see. Okay. Okay, so I heard you say 23 with your eyes and 31 with your feet. That is the number of the board on the approach that you're standing and looking at, right? So everything is based off of that middle dot on the approach, which would be the board 20, which also lines up with the middle arrow on the lane. So every arrow and every dot off of that will be 5 boards more or less, depending on what direction you're going. So you are just over 2 dots left on the approach, and you're really looking between the 4th and the 5th arrow on the lane. That's where the 23rd board is. So why don't you go ahead and throw another one here. I didn't quite catch it. Sounded pretty flush though.
All right, be in the same spot.
Yeah, you can definitely see that one just projects a little bit farther down the lane, so which is good. So we're in some of the other balls, they have a higher end piece, a stronger piece. When you get more friction, it actually looks like it'll hook less. But with these shinier middle of the road pieces, it looks like they kind of stay true to where they were. So why don't you throw one more with that Super Cuda, and then we'll look into that or dive into that ricochet.
Okay. Going back to 30 on my feet, like always, 23 at the eyes.
Did you make any changes there?
Nope, I just gotta be the same, be a little similar, maybe caught a little bit more, but.
Yeah, so you can see a lot. What did you see? I mean, I saw something. What did you see there compared to that last shot with the Piranha?
I definitely saw it pick up just a little bit earlier than this Piranha, which maybe helped it go through the pins a little bit better than our last shot just did with the Piranha Pearl.
Yeah, Piranha just seemed just a hair too clean behind that pin. So, all right, once you grab that ricochet, we'll take a look. Ricochet does come with a much shinier finish, so naturally it will be cleaner, but it does have a much stronger core and a much stronger cover. So we'll kind of see how that mix pairs with this high friction.
Can we just stay in the same spot?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, stand in the same spot as that last high flush guy.
31 with my feet, 23 with the eyes.
And you can see that extra shine just doesn't quite let the ricochet dig in as much. So what would you do as a college bowler, as a tournament player, if you were trying to ball down from a Cuda to a ricochet?
I definitely think in this instance, I need to get my ball maybe to the friction a little bit quicker. So I might be a little bit too steep with my angle. Might be able to make a 1-1 right, maybe send a little bit right quicker and be a little bit further right in the front part of the lane.
Okay. Yeah, just try and get a little bit closer to the friction to get it to kind of pick up a little bit faster. So, all right, let's see what that looks like. One thing to remember, it is also very important to make sure your surface matches up for what you're looking for. So we'll make some adjustments first, and then if we feel like we wanted to try and tweak this cover, we could always take a Sierra pad and kind of break the shine, because it does come with a high luster, which is great for if you're playing really, really close to the friction. But if you're trying to cover a lot of boards and you're in a body of, you know, like an ocean of lane oil, you're gonna need more help. So a lot of times you can use a pad to try and just break that shine to give you a little bit more of a predictable and consistent ball motion.
Right.
So you said you're gonna make a 1-1.
Yep, 1-1 right. So it'll be one with my feet to the right, put me at 30, one with my eyes, put me at 22.
Yeah, that's definitely a much better motion. And now that you're in the friction, you're able to see how much that ball can do on the back end. So it was pretty impressive to me. So it's just a matter of getting it to read the lane the right way that the ball wants to read the lane. So what are your initial thoughts comparing these two?
Yeah, I definitely see this Ricochet as just really poppy down lane, whereas the Super Cuda Pearl seemed to kind of just grab that mid lane just a little bit better, which seemed just maybe with the surface, which made it go through the pins a little bit better. Where I think going forward, if it were me going to a college tournament, I hit this Ricochet with a little bit more surface, just to knock some of that shine off, just to make sure it reads the lane the right part of the lane for me.
Yeah, bowling in tougher environments, it is really, really important to manage where or when your ball is trying to hook front to back on the lane. So you really want to try and dictate or control where your ball is trying to do what, you know? So if they're tougher, you need to do that. If they're a little bit easier, you can kind of rely on that big booming hook, as long as you're in enough of the friction to make that come alive. So I think I want to see you throw one more with the Super Cuda.
Okay.
I would say probably try and creep a little bit deeper and see how much you can get it to come around. Figure out where the dead zone is, where it's just not quite enough ball. Yeah, and that was still pretty good. I see your hand was a little bit softer. You're able to get your hand to kind of like float around it a little bit more and get more axis rotation, but it still drove really, really hard through the pin. So let's move another couple.
All right. All right, we'll make another 3-in-1.
Okay, so this is a pretty big move. This is 6-1 from the last, or 6-2 from the last spot, which you said was already 4-2 from when you started. So in the course of this video, we're 10 and change deeper. Hook. Wow. Almost. You can see it just start to get a little bit behind the head pin there. So I think being able to cross 10 boards in one session with the same ball kind of really speaks to how versatile and how consistent this performance will be for people. So if you have any final thoughts before we kind of pack up and head over to the headquarters?
Yeah, I just really like the shape that the Super Cuda is giving me. Like Tim said, we're able to move a lot over the lane and see relatively, if not good, ball motion, and that's just what I want to see. So.
Yeah. So I'm pretty excited to see kind of how this one does out in the public, as well as over at the headquarters on a couple different patterns. So we'll pack up and we'll see you over there in a few. All right, everyone, we're back. We made it over to Brunswick's headquarters. We are in their state-of-the-art kind of training facility, their test facility. We have a brand new install, so really fresh and young lane surface. We have a brand new high-tech lane machine, and we can put out whatever patterns we want. So we're gonna get Nate over here on lane 2. We're gonna be on a medium oil pattern. It's medium ratio. It's not too heavy or not too kind of flat, not too, cliffed or over under. So we should get some pretty good ball motion. So why don't you take this Cuda, get lined up and show us what it can do.
All right, I'm gonna start right around 33 with my feet. What would be 22 with the arrows.
Man, that thing charged pretty hard down lane. So that was a pretty good shot. And obviously just kind of like a blind guess, not too far off from where you probably need to be. Go ahead and make a move. Let's try and get you flush.
I'm gonna make a 1-1 left. Get it a little bit away from the friction. Maybe add some more oil in the middle of the lane. Have it not snap off the back of the pattern so hard. Put me at 34 with my feet. And what would be 23? My eyes.
Yeah, and that was probably as good as you can get it. To split the 8-9 like that, that was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So, do you feel like ball reaction-wise, that's ideal? Would you make moves off of that? Would you try and go a little bit less flush? What would go through your mind as a competitive player?
I definitely think that's a perfectly good zone for me to play on this, what's supposed to be a lower volume kind of house shot. I definitely think I'm going to need to be a little further left, use a little more of the middle of the lane, just to create some shim for the ball. So I don't think I need to move at all.
Yeah, and when you say shim, kind of tell us what you mean by shim.
Just like a little bit of hold when I get up the lane. So there's a little bit of oil, just because most house shots, all the oil is in the middle of the lane. So I'm able to use that by moving a little bit further left to create a little bit of hold for myself.
Okay. Yeah, so I think it looked really good as well. Let's see if you can do it again. Let's get 1 or 2 more with the Super Cuda, and if they all look that impressive, then we'll look at your comparison balls.
Again, 34 with my feet, my eyes.
Yeah, I don't think my ball's ever gone through the pins like that. So that was pretty impressive. Again, same thing. We saw decent amount of glue or kind of traction or catch in the mid lane, but really strong continuation on the back end.
Right.
So what are your thoughts after a couple shots here?
Yeah, I like this a lot here. I definitely think it gives me that little bit of miss right, because we saw off that first shot, it really clipped off it, and now I'm pretty comfortable and lined up.
Okay. Memory testing or kind of comparing how you saw it earlier today when we went over to Sherman, we went over to Northway. Kind of where do you feel like the ball fits in here?
Yeah, I definitely see the Super Cuda retaining a little more energy better. Maybe it has to do with the newer lane surfaces, not creating as much friction as the other centers. So I'm definitely seeing my ball drive through the pins a little bit harder, just because it is able to retain a little more energy than it did at Sherman and at Northway. It is kind of similar to Northway though, where I am on the lane. but I'm not getting those little like flat 10s that I was
the ones that kind of just
seeing,
give it
or,
one
like,
of those.
light
And
10s.
yeah,
So I definitely see my ball getting off a lot better.
yeah. So we'll see. We'll see one more with that one, and then we'll look at his comparisons. One of the things that's kind of standing out to me is having that stronger shiny cover. As you get deeper, and you're pretty deep in the lane, but it's not really losing hold of the lane. You know, that's not really like breaking loose on you and skidding way too far. It's still giving you really, really good continuous ball motion. So let's see it one more time, and then we'll look at these other ones. So what do you think of the colors? Obviously, it's got some contrast there. It's, you know, it's. How do you think it looks as the ball's going down the lane?
I really like how this ball looks going down the lane. The contrast on the ball helps you to kind of just read what the ball motion is. I'm kind of, unlike a lot of people I know, where I like colors with really contrasting, or like balls with a lot of contrasting colors. It helps you see just the ball motions a little better.
Yeah, and we'll see when you throw the ricochet, unless you have a grip, you know, an insert that's a contrasting color, it's going to be very difficult to know, unless you are that in tune with your physical game, it's going to be very difficult to know if you miss it one way or the other, you know, if you don't quite throw it 100% perfect, because there's just very little contrast. Whereas the Cuda, you're going to see enough contrast so that you'll know, you know, if it comes off your hand a little bit differently, more than just, you know, what your brain thinks it's feeling, you'll be able to see it visually too. So let's see another good one with that one.
Once again, in the 34.
Yeah, that's like on repeat, so that's pretty cool. So you can take whichever one of these you want to throw first. I think before we started with the Piranha, so if you want to keep with that trend, then by all means. So Piranha, like we mentioned before, I don't want to say a weaker core design, but just slightly different. You know, from one perspective, it's stronger. Another perspective, it's a little bit weaker. But the biggest difference between these two is going to be the cover stocks. This is a weaker material. It's ERT Pearl, ERT Plus Pearl, I believe. So it is going to be cleaner and probably less overall hook.
Okay.
So I would say start in the same spot. You just went high flush 3 times in a row, and then see what adjustments we got to make. Wow, that's pretty cool messenger, but I felt like I saw it. You notice where the ball, if you watch, you know, at home while you're watching the video, you kind of watch how the ball goes through the pins. That Super Cuda kind of drove right through that 8-pin, you know, and it almost finished between the 7 and the 8-pin. Where this Piranha, you saw it just seem to push a little bit further down the lane, almost get behind the head pin a little bit too much. When it hit the head pin, it actually kind of deflected and went to the right, which, you know, it's really cool to have a ring 10 messenger like that. Those don't happen too often. But as far as like entering the pins, the ball didn't quite face up the right way, so it kind of lost its energy and deflected a little bit. So I don't know if that's reliable. It's cool to see, it's fun to watch, but that's not really how you're going to be able to string 7-baggers. You can't kind of bank on that.
Right.
You need your ball to have energy going into the pins, and that's where the earlier traction and just the better continuation on the Super Cuda should help you.
Yeah.
So throw another one with that Piranha.
All right.
Let's just see if that
back to back.
lighter, you know, kind of half pocket hit is really where that one sits. Yeah, try and go back to back. If you do it again, I'll give you $100.
Here we go again. 34 with my feet.
Don't do it again.
23 with the eyes.
Well, that's left. Yeah, so that one you got up the lane a little bit and just didn't seem to have enough glue or dig in that body of oil. So I think, you know, we're seeing more of the same thing between these two balls. You know, I don't know how you feel, but
Yeah, I definitely am seeing what you're seeing. The Piranha seems to just get down the lane just a little bit more, whereas Super Cuda seems to, like we were saying, kind of pick up in the middle of the lane and continue through the pins a little better.
yeah. So let's see what the ricochet does. So as you guys are watching, we mentioned before about contrast and what your eye likes to see. He's got a black and a purple grip in this ball, and it's got gold engraving that you can't really see. So when the ball goes down the lane, if he misses it off his hand or if he gets it off his hand a little bit differently, you might not notice because there's really nothing, no visual cues to tell you what happened there. So Then we'll get into a couple shots with the Super Cuda, and you'll be able to see how the colors are kind of intermingling with each other.
In the same spot as I've been at. 34 feet, 0.
So is that in the same spot as you were with these last two shots here?
Yeah.
So, I mean, almost 410ing. That's pretty
A little scary.
pretty angular, yeah. So what did you see out of that? Did you feel like you threw it perfect?
I definitely feel like I got it maybe just a hair further right down lane, but it would still be concerning with how I'd want to attack this right now. I definitely think I need to move a little bit further left with the ricochet just to get the ball to face up through the pins correctly and give you the proper amount of misroom.
Yeah, definitely. You don't want to, if something's that violent off the spot or off the break point, you don't really want to play with that kind of fire. You know, if you soften up on one just a little bit, that's the one the ball's going to really knife, and you're going to leave a big 4 or some other kind of designer split. So go ahead and try that ricochet again. That is one of the beauties of having the Super Cuda, but because it does traction a little bit sooner, partially because of that box finish, the Super Cuda is going to start tractioning in the mid lane more, so it will help blend out any wet dry. So if you hit the dry a little bit too hard, it's not going to be as erratic or as drastic of a change of direction. Right. Where the ricochet, the bread and butter is how much that ball hooks off the friction on the back end. So we want to have balls that do different things. Ricochet has its place. Super Cuda will have its place too. You just got to figure out what place each one belongs in.
All right. So I think off that, I'm gonna make another 2-in-1 left. Put me about 36 of my feet, looking about 24.
Yeah. So you moved a little bit deeper. Still a lot of angle through the front of the lane, but because it's so shiny, it got really far down the lane, almost too far behind the head pin now. Yeah. So how much did you move there?
I spent a 2-in-1 left.
Okay, so only 2-in-1, and that you got a very big difference in how the ball went through the pins.
Right.
So I would say we went flush from that first spot with this ball, with the Super Cuda, right? Mm-hmm. From the same spot as you 4-pinned here. So I would say take this ball and make that 2-in-1 move again. Okay. And my prediction is, because it is more of a predictable motion or more consistent motion, you'll probably still go flush, okay, as opposed to having a high 4-pin, light mixer kind of ball reaction.
All right, 2-in-1 left. 36, 4.
Yeah. So, I mean, that was still really, really good through the pins. Definitely more flush than, the ricochet was from crossing more oil. And I think it's going to be a great complement to these two. Where do you feel like it'll fit in your tournament bag? I don't think it's going to be your game 1 ball. It's probably a little bit too strong to be your game 8 ball. But, when you're bowling college tournaments or competitive tournaments like you do off season, where do you feel like this is going to fit?
Yeah, I definitely think that the Super Cuda is going to work very well definitely in the later stages of a block, just with how clean it is, but it is still really controllable and predictable. I definitely see this as a good, a 6-game block, maybe my game 5, game 4, until I go something even cleaner than that. But overall, I definitely believe that it's super predictable. I mean, I know every shot when I throw what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and part of that is the whole package coming together. It's a very medium strength symmetrical core. It's a fairly strong pearl cover with some shine on it. So it's all those things put together are giving you what you're seeing out in the lane. So I'm excited. I think it's going to be a great piece for bowlers. I think every league bowler is going to enjoy it because it's going to let them stay in their track area where most league bowlers like to play, but it's not going to be sensitive to riding the oil line. It's going to kind of blend out the whole lane, but still give you a lot of drive into the pins. So Nate, thanks for joining us today. We had a good time. We saw a lot of balls go down the lane, a lot of cool pin action because of your style. Obviously, it was pretty impressive to watch. I'm excited to see the Super Cuda PowerCore Pearl in the hands of league bowlers later this year. I think it's going to be great for them and letting them play where they're comfortable playing and still giving them really, really good ball motion across, any style, any bowling center, you know, whatever they like to do to it, that's what the ball is going to give you. So it's going to be really, really great. Be sure to check out our social media channels at Columbia 300. Also check out Columbia300.com for all the latest product information. And you can also sign up for our email blasts, where you get emails sent every time we introduce a new product. You will get an email right into your inbox with that great info. So thank you everyone for tuning in, and don't forget, bowl the world over.